Our story begins on the island of Seriphos, where the young hero Perseus lived in exile with his mother, Danae. Perseus was no ordinary youth. He was a demigod, the son of Zeus himself, who had come to Danae in a shower of gold. However, his divine lineage offered little protection from the local ruler, King Polydectes. Polydectes was a man of cold ambition and burning lust. He desired Danae for his queen, but there was one obstacle standing in his way: Perseus. The young man was fiercely protective of his mother, and his presence made it impossible for the king to force himself upon her. Polydectes knew he couldn't simply kill a son of Zeus without risking divine wrath, so he decided to let the monsters of the world do the dirty work for him. The king announced a great banquet, claiming he was to be married and that every guest must bring a horse as a wedding gift. Perseus, being poor and having no horse to give, felt the sting of public humiliation. In a burst of youthful pride and reckless bravado, he stood before the court and declared, "I have no horse, but name any gift, even the head of the Gorgon Medusa, and I shall bring it to you." The hall fell silent. Medusa was a nightmare made flesh, a creature so hideous that a single glimpse of her face would turn any living being into cold, unmoving stone. Polydectes hid a triumphant sneer behind his wine goblet. He immediately held Perseus to his word.
"Your arrogance ends here, boy,"
banning him from returning to Seriphos without the trophy. Perseus walked out of the palace into the salt air, the weight of his boast settling into a grim reality. He had promised to fetch the one thing no mortal had ever looked upon and lived to tell the tale. He was not just a hero on a quest, he was a dead man walking. He was a mortal man armed with nothing but courage, tasked with killing a monster that could kill with a glance. However, the gods of Olympus were not mere spectators. Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war, and Hermes, the messenger god, descended from the heavens. They did not just want to see the tyrant Polydectes defeated. They had their own reasons for wanting the head of the Gorgon. They did not give Perseus a speech. They gave him the cheat codes of the ancient world. Hermes handed him a pair of winged sandals that allowed him to fly swifter than any bird, and a curved sickle of adamantine, sharp enough to cut through the scales of a monster. Athena provided the most crucial piece of equipment, a bronze shield polished to such a high shine that it worked like a perfect mirror. To complete his arsenal, Perseus needed items guarded by the nymphs of the north. After a long journey, he secured two more legendary artifacts. The first was the Helm of Invisibility, which belonged to Hades and allowed the wearer to vanish from sight, becoming a shadow that even a monster's eyes could not track. He also received the Kibisis, a magical satchel designed specifically to contain the severed head of the Gorgon, ensuring its deadly gaze wouldn't accidentally turn the world to stone through the fabric. Equipped with the power of the gods, Perseus was now the most dangerous man on earth. Yet, as he flew toward the edge of the world, Athena's final warning echoed in his mind.
Never look at her.
No shield, no sword, and no helmet could protect his soul if his eyes met Medusa's directly. The battle would not be won by strength alone, but by a hero who could fight while looking away. To find the path to his monstrous objective, Perseus had to travel first to the edges of the earth, where the sunlight barely touches the ground and the shadows are eternal. There live the Graeae, three sisters who were born with gray hair and share, by a decree of fate, a single eye and a single tooth between them. These ancient hags are the only ones who know the location of the nymphs who guard the treasures needed for his mission and the secret path to the Gorgon's lair. Perseus, aware that he cannot defeat them by brute force without alerting their guardians, decided to use the wit and stealth granted by his divine heritage. Taking advantage of the fact that the sisters are in an eternal cycle of passing the eye to one another to watch over their gloomy home, Perseus approached in silence, hidden by the shadows and the wind. At the precise moment one of the sisters removed the eye from its socket to hand it to her sibling, the hero reached out and caught the eye in midair. Suddenly, the three sisters were plunged into absolute darkness, screaming in terror and groping the air with their wrinkled hands while blaming each other for dropping it. Perseus, remaining calm, informed them that he had their eye in his possession and would not return it until they revealed the information he needed. Trapped by panic and the despair of losing their only link to the visible world, the Graeae had no choice but to give in to the demands of the son of Zeus. They revealed the secret path to the nymphs and warned him of the horrors that awaited him in the cave of the Gorgons. True to his word, Perseus returned the eye, leaving them to their eternal retreat as he took flight again with his winged sandals. With the location burned into his mind, the hero now headed toward the heart of danger, knowing the next face he saw might be his last. Perseus arrived at the edge of the world, where the land meets the eternal twilight of the west. The entrance to the Gorgon's cavern was marked by a gruesome gallery of statues, men and beasts frozen in mid-scream, their stone eyes wide with a terror that would never fade. These were the heroes who had come before him, those who had trusted their eyes and paid for it with their lives. As he stepped into the damp, echoing darkness of the cave, the only sound was the distant rhythm of the sea and the faint, unsettling hiss of thousands of snakes. Remembering Athena's warning, Perseus did not look ahead. Instead, he raised his bronze shield, positioning it so the polished surface acted as a window into the world behind him. Through the reflection, he saw the three Gorgons sleeping amidst the bones of their victims. Two of them, Stheno and Euryale, were immortal, but the third was the one he sought, Medusa. Even in sleep, her face was a haunting paradox of ancient beauty and monstrous horror. Her hair a writhing mass of venomous vipers that twitched and hissed at the presence of an intruder. With his heart drumming against his ribs, Perseus moved backward, guided only by the mirror of his shield. He watched the reflection of the sleeping monster grow larger as he approached, every step a gamble with death. When he was close enough to feel the cold air radiating from her scales, he raised the adamantine sickle. Guided by the goddess Athena, who supposedly held the shield steady in his mind's eye, Perseus delivered a single, powerful blow. The blade cut through the air and bone with divine precision. Without ever meeting her eyes, Perseus severed the head of Medusa, ending the curse of her gaze and fulfilling the impossible task set by a tyrant. As Medusa's head fell to the cavern floor, a miracle of life erupted from the site of her death. From her severed neck sprang the majestic winged horse Pegasus and the giant warrior Chrysaor, beings that had been trapped within her since her cursed transformation. Perseus did not stop to marvel at these wonders. He quickly grabbed the head, careful to keep his eyes averted even in its death, and shoved it into the magical cabesus. The bag pulsed with a dark energy as it contained the Gorgon's power, but the danger was far from over. The sound of the struggle had awakened Medusa's immortal sisters, Stheno and Euryale. The two surviving Gorgons let out a piercing, mournful shriek that echoed through the cliffs like a physical blow. They rose from their slumber, their bronze wings beating the air as they caught the scent of their sister's blood. They flew toward the intruder with their talons outstretched. Perseus seemed trapped in the narrow tunnels of the lair, but he remembered the gifts of the gods. He donned the helm of invisibility, vanishing from the physical world just as the sisters' claws swept through the space where he had stood. Invisible and silent, he took to the sky with his winged sandals, leaving the vengeful monsters to scream at the empty air. Perseus flew across the vast oceans, carrying the most dangerous weapon in the world in a simple satchel. On his journey back, the drops of blood that leaked from the bag fell into the sands of Libya, supposedly transforming into the venomous snakes that infest the desert to this day. His adventure did not end at the cave. He would go on to use the head to rescue the Princess Andromeda from a sea monster and finally return to Seriphos. There, he walked into the court of King Polydectes, who mocked him for returning empty-handed.
To Perseus, the fool, may his quest be his last.
In a final act of justice, Perseus revealed the trophy, turning the tyrant and his court into a gallery of silent stone statues. The hero eventually gave the head to Athena, who placed it upon her own shield, the Aegis, ensuring that Medusa's terrifying gaze would protect the goddess of wisdom forever.